Captains of Industry, brought to you by Airtel.
Welcome back. You're watching Captains of Industry, where right now we're shifting focus away from Gijima, the business, to Jonas Bogoshi, the man with me right now. Jonas Bogoshi, CEO of Gijima. Jonas, let's pick up on this conversation and perhaps put the spotlight on your evolution personally. What was one of your first jobs?
Well, my first job, Alicia, was a gardener. So when I was still going through high school, I got a job as a gardener. So I worked for about 5 years. So I was not quite content with that. And I suppose that everything changed. That's where I am today. So I was not content with being a gardener.
And it's quite a rise that we've seen. I mean, becoming a leader of one of South Africa's most prominent listed IT companies. Have you always had a passion for IT and systems engineering?
Not quite. I stumbled I stumbled up on a computer quite late. I think I was in grade 10 then, or rather standard 10, which is grade 12. I read about it and I just liked it. So I went to university to study mathematics. My view was to become a lecturer in mathematics. I liked maths. I had an aptitude, or at least have an aptitude for mathematics. And when I got to university, part of what I was doing was work on a computer. I loved it. I changed from majoring in maths. I majored in computer science. So, and later on I moved into working for IBM and other companies, and I've never looked back since then.
Yeah, it's a very interesting, tracking your career moves that you have made, because you spent 20 years in the service of South Africa's leading private and public sector ICT players. I mean, what motivated the decision, first of all, to move from the public arena to the private sector, or back into it, let's say? Yeah,
I spent only 3 years in the public sector, so most of my career has been with the private sector. And going into the public sector, there were a number of things why I did that. One was as a black South African working for multinational companies, very leading multinational companies, I did feel that there was a need for me to plow back to society, and that was one of the ways to do that. But the second thing was for me to build a much broader network than I had before. So there was a personal reason why I did that, to build a broader network. Working with government for me was going to enable me to do that. And so that's what I did. I was going to be there for 3 years. I was there for 2 years, 11 months and 15 days.
That's very exact, and
that's
it's very
exact,
good memory.
Yes. And then I moved back to private sector.
Well, certainly just illustrating that you are a man of numbers. They're described as a shortage road to the head of Gijima. What do you attribute your success to?
Well, firstly, I must say that I came to Gijima at the right time. I came at a time when there was a merger of Gijima and the AST, and luckily I came from none of the two. So when I arrived there, I was welcomed by both parties because I was neutral. So in a way, I was a lucky person to do that. But more importantly, I was a customer of the industry. Working for public sector, I watched Gijima, I watched its competitors selling to us and providing service. And at least I knew what were the strong points of Gijima and what were areas of improvement. And when I got there, I focused on that. But the other thing is I really believe in people, and I believe that given the right context, the right support, people will always perform well. And I spent most of my time, the first 2 months, going around the company, meeting almost everybody. I met over 90% of each and every employee, speaking to them personally, asking them what is that they think we can do to make the company a leading company. And I must say, even today, 4 years later, some of the things I'm implementing come from that 2 months roadshow. So working with the employees really helped me to steer the ship into the right direction.
Well, it seems like you get a lot of insight from working with those on the ground at the coalface of it all. I mean, what have been the greatest lessons you've learned working your way up the corporate ladder?
Well, there were a number of things. One, it's working for a multinational. What you do is you get a strategy developed somewhere else, and what you do, you execute. Coming to Gijima, firstly, it's a local South African company, but more importantly, I came in as a CEO. So the buck stops with me, so I can't go and ask anybody else. But over time, I have learned, and I do believe that companies that are consistently performing are those that are vision guided, that are strategy led, and values driven. So I focus on those three things, on creating a context for the business, on putting together a strategy to achieve that, and that we have some core values we can believe in. And when you do that, you give employees the reason why they need to work. And when you do that, they will always surprise you. It's amazing that when you talk to employees about shareholder value, that doesn't mean anything. But if you talk to them about building an organization that will have impact on society, that they can relate to. So that's what I've learned, that if you were to focus employees on that, then you will succeed.
In researching, Jonas, I came across, that yours is a rags to riches story. It's a fairly common story that's shared by South Africa's black elite. What's your advice on handling hardship and overcoming it, using it to make you stronger, as opposed to letting it jade you and whittle away at your spirit?
Yeah, I must say upfront that I'm not saying that everybody must go through hardship before they can achieve. However, going through hard times does strengthen you. I suppose that's why diamond is so rare, because it's gone through pressure. So for me, I think going through hardships, I come from a very humble beginning, so that helped me to be who I am. But the important thing for everybody, for anybody out there, especially young people, is that if you have a dream, irrespective of where you are, you can achieve that. I believe that everything in the world is created twice, first in your mind and then in real life. If you can do the first creation in your mind and get it vividly clear, then the second one can also happen.
So had you also always had a sense that you were destined to be a leader?
There was a time when I was still young, at about 12 years, 10 to 12 years, when I found out that 3 of my siblings passed away before I was born. And for some reason at that moment, I thought to myself, the reason why I did not die like my siblings, there must have been a reason. And deep down I harbored that view that one day I'm going to achieve something. I didn't know what it was. I didn't think it was necessarily being a CEO of a company, let alone the listed one. But deep down I assumed that I was destined for something, and I worked hard everywhere because I assumed that I was going to achieve something in life.
That brings us to the old age debate of, whether or not a leader is born or can be nurtured. Do you think a leader can be coached? Because, you were one of the first black students who didn't have to seek permission from the Department of Education to be admitted into university. Of course, you entered UCT, and it was tough going. I've heard you saying being one of the first black students in a then very white society. It didn't help that you were shy. And as a CEO now, I've got to assume that you've worked away at that shyness.
Well, yes, I'm still a private person, but yes, I had to overcome the shyness. There's no question about it. I suppose you can't be a CEO and lead this organization without being out there and meeting with the people. So yes, I've overcome the shyness. But you're right that being one of the few black students who did not have to get permission from the minister to study at White University did give me an opportunity. I suppose if I went there 2 years before, maybe they would have refused me to study at UCT, and we could be talking about a different story. So yes, the environment does help to build a leader, even though deep down I knew that I was destined for something big, but the fact that I had a chance to study at that university built me to what I am today.
Let's talk about the balancing act, because you highlighted in the first part of the show that, at some point it was a challenge balancing your work and your home life. It has become somewhat of a priority right now. But how much of a challenge is that, getting that work life and home life balance absolutely perfect?
It is more complex, more difficult than we say. I think everybody understands that for you to be strong, you need to have that life-work balance. It's one of the most difficult things to do. If I look back in the last 10 years, I think I have tried to have that balance. I think my family will say otherwise. My wife, my kids
we'll have to speak to your wife at a later
absolutely.
stage.
They will say that they see me spending more time. I try to make sure that I don't take work home, and when I do, I let the kids sleep and I work at night. So I've tried to spend more time with them. And what I've tried to do is also some weekends block them off altogether and do absolutely nothing but spend time with the kids. And that to me is gratifying. I wish I could do that more often, but I suppose the pressures of my work, these things are part and parcel of being a leader of a listed company.
Aside from spending time with the kids, with the family, what do you do in your free time?
I play golf now. I stopped playing golf for some time because I wanted to have that balance. But now I think things are
Is it
easier.
really a balance? I heard that a lot of work gets done on that golf.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what I did, I used to play golf a lot when I worked for multinationals. When I went to public sector, I did not. I therefore stopped golf because I needed to spend time with the family. Now I've gone back and that's what I relax. I play golf, and in the last 7 months, I've taken gym quite seriously. I think with the pressures I have, I need to have a healthy body and a healthy mind. So every morning at 4 o'clock, I wake up and I go to the gym. At least that has helped to keep me sane.
And let's talk about this cooking ability of yours, because I believe that that's an application that you've in fact got on your iPhone, where you've got recipes that are stored on that application.
You were me, Alicia. That you've got
we
to
dig
do that.
deep.
I didn't realize that you know that. Absolutely right. I was the only child at home, so my mom liked cooking, and she used to involve me in cooking, and I enjoyed it. So over the years, I spent more time cooking. I know that it's going to be on TV, but yes, I cook better than my wife. So she won't like this part, but I enjoy that. So yes, I have got an application.
She may just like it because then it means that the duties get passed on to you.
Oh, absolutely. And she does that, especially when we have visitors and I have to, and she wants to impress. She'll ask me to cook my favorite, whatever that is, say that I must do it. So yes, I do have an application. But what I found out recently is that it actually helps me more to relax. Cooking, spending time in the kitchen with my kids, I get them to choose whatever they want to cook. They give themselves names, and we cook. That helps to bond with my family, but also it relaxes me to relax. When I leave that cooking, then I can focus on other more serious things, if I can put it that way.
Let's take a look at what's next. Is there a plan in motion targeting your next dream?
Well, not quite. And the reason why I say that, it's in the last 12 months with Who Am I Online, what I wanted to achieve at Gijima was slightly derailed. For me, the company has got potential. If you take out Who Am I Online and you look at what we're able to achieve, when the industry average EBITDA margins were about 5%, we are already at 11%. I think it can be done. I think we can produce margins that are much higher than industry, and the focus now is to get us back to where I believe we belong. That's one part. The second part is the industry is going a fundamental change, right? Whether be it the advent of mobility or that of cloud. And I believe as Gijima or as South African IT companies, for us to remain relevant, we need to move away from being consumers of IT IP, and be creators of that. So what I'm focusing on is where as a company we can become the catalyst of creating IP for ICT in South Africa. And so far on iPads, we've asked employees to come up with ideas of developing applications. We came with 75 of those, and now we are developing 5. So I'm quite happy that we're on the track to becoming a leading company in South Africa.
Well, great leaders embrace feedback and act on it. Jonas, a pleasure chatting to you today. Thanks so much for your time this evening. That was Jonas Bogoshi, CEO of Gijima, with us for this edition of Captains of Industry. Until next time, from me, Alicia Seckham, goodbye.